In this exercise, I'll show you a few more ways to reshape a path outline as you're working on it. I'm still working inside rearspikes.ai, found inside the 09 pen tool folder. I'm going to scroll up a little so I can see these few remaining spikes here. And I'll click on this endpoint to activate the path and continue clicking like so. Now, let's say I put a segment in entirely the wrong location. You can move an entire straight segment at a time by pressing and holding the Control key, Command key on a Mac, assuming that the white arrow tool was the last tool you used, or you switched to it using the keyboard shortcut that we discussed in the previous exercise. And then notice you can drag a straight segment like so. So just drag the middle of the segment to move that entire segment and to stretch the segment next to it. And it also works, by the way, with an interior segment like so. So I can move this segment and stretch both of its neighbors. All right, I'll go ahead and put this one back where I want it to be. Then I might go ahead and move this anchor point like so, drag this anchor point to this location, go ahead and adjust things a little bit. And as long as I'm making small adjustments, I might as well nudge that point from the keyboard. So you can nudge the selected point by pressing any of your arrow keys. Of course, I'll press Control K, Command K on the Mac. That's going to nudge that point by the keyboard increment that you specified inside the Preferences dialog box, which in my case is just 0.2 points. So a very fine increment. I'll cancel out there. If you want 10 times that increment, you press the Shift key along with the arrow key. So I'm pressing Shift up arrow in order to move that point upward. In 2-point increments, I'll press Shift down arrow to put it back, like so. All right, let's go ahead and grab this guy by control dragging it to a different location. I'll go ahead and click and click. Oops, somehow I deactivated my path. That's fine. I'll go ahead and click here, but you have to watch it, right? If I click at this location, I'm going to join those two paths like so. That's not what I want. So I'll undo that modification. I'll press Control-Shift-A, Command-Shift-A to deselect everything. Then I'll click on this endpoint in order to activate it, and I'll click on this endpoint in order to join the two paths like so. Now I can see that I have an X next to my pen tool cursor, so I can feel free to click on this endpoint in order to activate it without joining some other endpoint to it, and click like so in order to extend the path until I am more or less done. Now I need to go ahead and click inside of the creature like so, and I'm just laying down anchor points inside of this tail thing that's coming out of the crocodile's head. However, I might not have enough clearance right there, so I'll control drag or command drag that point up a little bit. Then I'll click like so in order to add more points. And eventually, I'm going to finish off the path by closing it like so. Now, you can also, incidentally, select multiple points inside of Illustrator, and you can do that either by pressing, of course, the Control key or the Command key on the Mac to switch back to the white arrow tool. You can click on a point in order to activate it, and then Control-Shift-Click or Command-Shift-Click on another point to select it as well. So when the Shift key is down, you can add more points to your selection, or if you want to deselect a point, you Control-Shift-Click or Command-Shift-Click on it as well. So having that Shift key down is a selection toggle, in other words. It either toggles the point selected, or if it's already selected, it makes it deselected, like so. And then you can move all of those anchor points together by control-dragging or command-dragging on any one of them. Another thing you can do is you can marquee. So I'll go ahead and scroll up a little bit here. If I press and hold the Control key or the Command key on the Mac and I marquee like so, that is, I draw a rectangle here inside of my illustration window, then any points that are surrounded by that marquee become selected when I release the mouse button. And in my case, I've selected these anchor points right there. Then I would control drag or command drag them to a different location. I could also nudge these selected points from the keyboard. And in my case, I'm pressing Shift along with the arrow keys. Anyway, this ends up looking pretty good right there. I think I'm done. Now, bear in mind that I'm going to cover all this junk right here with other path outlines, so we don't have to worry about the fact that we've got a bunch of straight edges as long as they fall inside some portion of the crocodile's head. In the next exercise, I'm going to show you how to convert one of these straight-sided path outlines into a spline curve.